The alarm screamed through Section 7 like the universe itself was tearing apart. Dr. James Reid didn't look up from his microscope. After 3 years on the frontier station, you learned to distinguish between real emergency, alarms, and another drunk Valation picked a fight, alarms. This one made his coffee mug rattle off the table. Code Crimson, all medical personnel to Bay 3, Code Crimson. James was already running before his brain caught up. Code Crimson. He'd never heard a Code Crimson. Not in 3 years, not once. Bay 3 was chaos incarnated. Smoke, screaming, the acrid smell of burnt metal and something else. Something organic and wrong. Through the crowd of panicking crew members, James saw it. A small body on the deck, surrounded by a pool of liquid that shimmered colors he had no name for. A child. Maybe 8 years old by human standards, though with alien species you could never tell. The kid's skin had a faint blue luminescence, now flickering like a dying light bulb. 4 arms hung at impossible angles, and the blood, God, so much blood. Move. James shoved through the crowd, his medical bag already open. Everybody back now. A security officer grabbed his arm. Doc, you don't understand, this is a dying child. Yeah, I got that part. Let go or lose the hand. The officer's 3 eyes widened, but he stepped back. James dropped to his knees beside the small body. His hands moved on autopilot, training taking over where logic failed. Pulse check, 3 hearts, 2 barely beating. Breathing shallow, irregular, failing. Massive internal trauma. Compound fractures in at least 6 limbs. This kid had minutes, maybe less. What happened? James demanded, not looking up as he jabbed a universal stabilizer into the child's primary arterial cluster. Explosion. Sabotage. We think, the officer's voice cracked. Doc, you need to know who this. I need you to shut up and get me a Class 4 regenerator. Now. We don't have. Then improvise, move. The crowd scattered. James's hands flew across the child's body, sealing wounds, stabilizing organs that he'd only read about in xenobiology texts. The kid's eyes fluttered open, large, silver, filled with pain and something else. Fear. No, trust. This child looked at him with absolute trust. Hey, buddy, James whispered, forcing a smile. You're gonna be okay, I promise, just stay with me. The child's lips moved. A word in a language James didn't recognize. Then, in broken universal, hurts. I know it hurts, but you're tough, right? I can tell, you're the toughest kid I've ever met. A ghost of a smile, then the eyes rolled back. No, stay with me. James grabbed the portable defib unit someone thrust at him. Clear. The child's body arced. Nothing. Again clear. Still nothing. Around him, people were crying. Someone was praying in a language that sounded like wind chimes. James's own eyes burned, but he refused to stop. He pulled a syringe from his bag, experimental, technically illegal, something he'd been developing in his off hours for exactly this kind of impossible situation. If this doesn't work, he muttered, I'm fired anyway. He plunged the needle directly into the child's primary heart. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. James counted them. 1, 2, 3. Then the child gasped. The silver eyes snapped open. The luminescence in the skin blazed bright, then settled into a steady glow. 3 hearts began beating in sync. The child coughed, choked, then drew in a deep, shuddering breath. That's it. That's my tough guy. James laughed, and it came out half sob. Just breathe. Just keep breathing. The child's small hand, one of 4, reached up and grabbed James's sleeve. You saved me. Yeah, buddy, and you're going to stay saved. I've got you. The crowd erupted. People were shouting, crying, hugging each other. The security officer from before fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. Someone grabbed James by the shoulders, shaking him. Do you understand what you just did? Do you have any idea? I did my job, James said firmly, still holding the child's hand. Now somebody get me a proper medical bay before I lose him again. They moved the child to the station's main medical facility. James worked for 6 more hours straight, repairing damage, regenerating tissue, setting bones that had never appeared in any human medical textbook. The kid, he still didn't even know the kid's name, drifted in and out of consciousness, but every time those silver eyes opened, they found James first. It was near midnight station time when the doors to the medical bay opened with a sound like thunder. James looked up from his datapad, annoyed. Visiting hours are. He stopped. The woman who entered didn't walk, she flowed. Tall, maybe 7 feet, with the same blue luminescent skin as the child, but hers blazed with power. She wore robes that seemed woven from starlight itself, and her silver eyes, gods those eyes, held the weight of galaxies. Behind her came an entourage, warriors in crystalline armor, advisors with faces James couldn't quite focus on, beings that made the air shimmer with their mere presence. Every person in the medical bay dropped to their knees. Every person except James. He stood there, exhausted, covered in blood that wasn't his own, holding a cup of terrible coffee, and stared at the woman who had just made 20 people prostrate themselves without saying a word. "Can I help you?" he asked. The room went silent. Someone actually gasped. The woman's eyes locked onto his. For a moment, James felt like he was being weighed, measured, judged by something far beyond human comprehension. Then her gaze shifted past him, to the small figure in the medical bed. Her composure shattered. "Kael," she whispered, and the single word carried such raw anguish that James felt it in his bones. She crossed the distance in 3 strides and dropped to her knees beside the bed. Her hands, also 4 of them, James noted distantly, hovered over the sleeping child, afraid to touch, as if he might break. "Is he?" Her voice cracked. "Tell me he lives." "He's stable," James said, his doctor voice kicking in automatically. "Critical but stable, another hour and—" He didn't finish, didn't need to. The woman's shoulders shook. For a long moment she simply knelt there, one hand finally resting on the child's forehead. Then she looked up at James, and he saw tears streaming down her face, tears that glowed like liquid diamonds. "You saved him." "I'm a doctor. It's what I do." "You saved my son." "Oh, you saved the Crown Prince of the Alithian Empire, the heir to 17 star systems, the future of my entire civilization." "Oh, and you." She stood, her full height suddenly imposing. "You are human." The way she said it made it sound like an accusation and a miracle at the same time. "Last time I checked," James said, because apparently his survival instinct had clocked out hours ago. One of the advisors stepped forward, face twisted with disgust. "Your Majesty, surely you don't intend to thank this creature. It was probably human sabotage that—" "Silence." The single word from the woman made the advisor stumble backward. She never took her eyes off James. "You will tell me your name." "Dr. James Reid. Human. Earth. General practitioner, though I'm pretty sure I just voided my medical license in about 40 different ways tonight." A smile ghosted across her face. "I am Queen Alara Surith of House Midnight Star, protector of the 17 Sons, voice of the Eternal Council." She paused. "And I am a mother whose child is alive because of you." "Your Majesty, please." Another advisor, this one trying for reason. "The protocols, the traditions, we must consider." "My son lives." Alara's voice cut through the protests like a blade through silk. "A human saved my son when our own physicians were not here, when our own security failed, when our own people—" Her voice hardened. "When our own people planted a bomb intended to end my bloodline." The room went deathly quiet. "Dr. James Reid." Alara turned to face him fully, and suddenly every person in the room was kneeling again, except James, who was really starting to feel like he'd missed an important cultural memo. "By the ancient laws of my people, you have created a life debt. My son's life is bound to yours. You are, from this moment forward, considered blood of my blood, kin of my kin." "What?" "You are family now," Alara said softly. "Whether you wish it or not, the life you saved binds you to us, to me." Something flickered in her eyes, forever. James looked at the child. Kael, sleeping peacefully in the bed, looked at this queen who commanded star systems with a word. Looked at his own hands, still stained with blood, still shaking slightly from adrenaline and exhaustion. "I'm going to need better coffee," he said finally. Alara laughed. It was a sound like crystal bells, and it transformed her face from imposing to radiant. "I think that can be arranged." The invitation to the royal palace came 3 days later. James put invitation in mental quotes because when a queen who controls 17 star systems asks you to visit, it's not really a question. The palace was. Well, calling it a palace was like calling a supernova a bright light. It was a structure that defied physics, built from materials James had no name for, hovering in a stable orbit around a binary star system. Just the docking approach took 2 hours. Kael was waiting for him at the airlock. The kid looked good, fully healed, bouncing on his feet, all four of them, silver eyes bright with excitement. The moment James stepped through, Kael launched himself at him, all four arms wrapping around James in a hug that nearly knocked him over. "You came. Mother said you would, but Advisor Zix said humans are too selfish to honor the life debt, but I knew you'd come." "Hey, buddy." James ruffled the kid's hair, which felt like silk and static electricity. "Of course I came. How you feeling?" "Good, great. Want to see my room? I have 17 different game systems and a zero-gravity simulator and—" "Kael." Alara appeared from a side corridor and James's breath caught. She wasn't in formal robes now. Instead, she wore something simpler, elegant, that somehow made her even more intimidating. "Let Dr. Reid breathe. He's been traveling." "It's James," he said automatically. "Dr. Reid is for when someone's dying." James then. The way she said his name did something strange to his pulse. "Come, we have much to discuss." They walked through corridors that seemed to shift and change, past gardens that grew in defiance of gravity, by windows that showed impossible vistas of stars and nebulae. Servants bowed as Alara passed. Guards saluted with weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. And through it all, Kael chattered, one hand firmly clasped in James's, talking about everything and nothing. His lessons, his friends, the new security measures, boring. The games he wanted to show James, very important. Alara led them to a private terrace overlooking a garden that smelled like jasmine and ozone. She dismissed the hovering attendants with a gesture, leaving just the three of them. "I suppose," Alara said, settling into a chair that molded itself to her form, "I should explain what a life debt means in my culture." "Would be helpful," James admitted, taking the seat across from her. Kael immediately climbed into his lap, apparently deciding this was his preferred position. When one person saves another's life, truly saves it, against impossible odds, a bond is formed. We believe that the universe itself witnesses this act and creates a connection between the souls. Alara's eyes were distant. It is not taken lightly. The one who holds the debt becomes family, not metaphorically, actually. "So I'm legally your, what, brother? In Kael's case, you are considered a parent." She saw his expression and nodded. "Yes. By our law, you have as much claim to him as I do, as much right to make decisions about his life, his future." "That's insane." "That's tradition." Alara leaned forward. "But there's more. A life debt between a royal heir and another creates what we call a star bond. It means you are bound not just to Kael, but to me, to my house, to my throne." James felt like the gravity had just increased. "What does that mean, exactly?" "It means," a new voice said from the entrance, dripping with disdain, "that a human now has claim to the Alithian throne." James turned to see a tall figure in ornate robes, face twisted with barely concealed disgust. More figures filed in behind him, nobles by their dress, each one looking at James like he was something they'd scraped off their shoe. "Advisor Zix," Elara said, her voice frosting over. "I don't recall summoning the council. And we don't recall approving this arrangement." Zix gestured at James like he was a specimen. "Your Majesty, please reconsider. The law is ancient, yes, but surely we can find a way to." "To what?" Elara stood, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. "To deny the life debt, to spit on the traditions our entire civilization is built upon. Or is it just this particular tradition that offends you? The one that puts a human on equal standing with our nobles?" "Your Majesty," another noble stepped forward, trying for diplomacy. "We understand your gratitude. Perhaps a title, lands, compensation." "My son was dying." Elara's voice could have cut diamond. "He had 3 minutes left. Where were you? Where were our royal physicians? Where was our vaunted technology?" She paused. "A human doctor with outdated equipment and no knowledge of our physiology saved my child. And you want to offer him compensation?" "We want," Zix hissed, "to protect the purity of our bloodline. This creature now has legal claim to influence the throne, to shape our future. It's an abomination." James carefully lifted Kael off his lap and stood. He was shorter than every single person in the room, human plane compared to their otherworldly beauty. But he'd faced down drunk pirates, hostile diseases, and an exploding reactor core. He could face down bigoted nobles. "Let me save you some time," he said pleasantly. "I don't want your throne. I don't want your titles or your lands or your compensation. I'm a doctor. I save lives because it's the right thing to do, not because I want something in return." "Then renounce the life debt," Zix said immediately. "Sign the papers, walk away, and we'll—" "No." Every eye turned to Kael. The young prince stood between James and his mother, small but somehow commanding, silver eyes blazing with an inner fire. "He's my family now," Kael said firmly. "The bond is made. You can't unmake it just because you're scared of humans." "Scared?" Zix laughed. "We're not scared of—" "You are." Elara's voice was quiet, but it carried. "You're terrified. Because for all our advancement, our technology, our power, a human did what we could not, saved what we could not save, and you can't stand it." The nobles shifted uncomfortably. "The life debt stands," Elara continued. "Doctor. James Reid is family. He is kin. He is—" She paused and something flickered in her eyes. "He is under my personal protection. Anyone who harms him, insults him, or works against him answers to me." "Your Majesty," Zix tried one more time, "consider what you're saying. A human, in the royal family, it sets a precedent we cannot." "Get out." Elara's voice was steel. "All of you now." They went. The silence after they left was profound. Kael looked between his mother and James, clearly picking up on the tension but not fully understanding it. "I'm sorry," Elara said finally. "You didn't ask for any of this." "No," James agreed. But Kael didn't ask to be blown up either. Sometimes life doesn't ask permission. "They'll make your life difficult. The nobles, the council, they see humans as lesser, and having one bound to the royal family." She trailed off. "I can handle difficult." James looked at Kael, who was watching him with those trusting silver eyes. "Question is, what do you want, really?" Elara was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was careful. "I want my son safe. I want whoever planted that bomb found and punished. I want—" She paused. "I want to understand how you did it, how you saved him when all our science said it was impossible." "I broke about 40 laws of xenobiology and got lucky. There's more to it than that. I've read your file, Dr. Reid." "James." She moved closer. "You're not just a doctor, you're a healer. You see life as sacred, worth fighting for, worth risking everything to preserve. That's rare in any species. Is this going somewhere?" "Stay." The word came out almost desperate. "Not just for the life debt. Stay because we need you. Because I need—" She caught herself. "Because Kael needs someone who sees him as a child first, a prince second, someone not trying to use him for political gain." James looked at her, really looked. Past the alien features, the luminescent skin, the impossible beauty. He saw a mother, exhausted, scared, trying to hold together an empire while protecting her son. Saw the loneliness in her eyes, the weight of responsibility that no one else could share. He saw someone who needed a friend. "I need better quarters," he said. "The station housing smells like old socks." Ilara's face transformed with her smile. "Done. And access to a proper medical facility. If I'm going to be a royal family member, or whatever, I'm going to practice medicine. You can have the entire royal medical wing. And coffee. Real coffee from Earth. I don't care what it costs to ship it. I'll have a shipment sent immediately." She paused. "Anything else?" "Yeah." James looked at Kael, then back at Ilara. "Teach me. About your people, your culture, what this life debt really means. If I'm going to do this, I'm doing it right." Something shifted in Ilara's expression. Something warm and soft and dangerous. "I think I can manage that." The next 6 months were the strangest of James's life. He took up residence in the palace, in quarters that were larger than his entire previous apartment, with a view of a nebula that made him stop and stare every morning. He set up a medical practice that served not just nobles but anyone who needed care, much to the council's horror and Ilara's quiet approval. He learned the language, the customs, the intricate dance of court politics and royal etiquette. He learned that Ilithians had 3 genders, 17 different formal greetings depending on context, and considered musical ability a sign of intelligence. He learned that Ilara liked her morning drink, not quite tea, not quite coffee exactly at dawn. That she worked too hard and slept too little. That when she was stressed, she paced the eastern gardens where the flowers glowed in the dark. He learned that Kael was brilliant, mischievous, and harbored a deep fear that someone would try to kill him again. That the boy had nightmares where James couldn't save him in time. And he learned that the council's hostility wasn't just about him being human. It was about what he represented: change. The old guard's worst fear was that the empire might not need pure bloodlines and ancient traditions to survive. That maybe, just maybe, the future looked different than the past. The assassination attempt came during a state dinner. James wasn't supposed to be there. He wasn't technically nobility, life debt or not. But Kael had asked, and Ilara had agreed, and suddenly James found himself in formal robes that felt like wearing liquid starlight, surrounded by hundreds of beings who looked at him with everything from curiosity to open hostility. He was picking at something that looked like fruit but tasted like chicken when Kael gasped. James turned, saw the boy's eyes go wide, saw him clutch his throat. Training took over. James was moving before anyone else even registered the problem, catching Kael as he collapsed, fingers already checking pulse, checking airways, scanning for symptoms. "Poison," he snapped. "Someone get me." An advisor, not Zix but one of his allies, stood nearby, face carefully neutral. Too carefully. And there on the table a glass that Kael had been drinking from. A glass that the advisor had personally handed to the prince. "You," James growled. "I have no idea what." James didn't let him finish. He grabbed the glass, shoved it at the advisor's face. "Drink it. I will not be insulted by drink it." The advisor's composure cracked. He stepped back and guards were suddenly there, weapons drawn. Ilara appeared beside James, her face a mask of cold fury. "Explain," she said quietly. "Now." But James wasn't listening. Kael was dying. Again. And he'd be damned if he let it happen twice. He pulled a vial from his pocket. He'd started carrying emergency supplies everywhere. Calculated dosages in his head for alien physiology he still barely understood, and injected the counteragent directly into Kael's bloodstream. "Come on, buddy, not again. You promised me not again." Kael's eyes fluttered. He coughed, gasped, and then drew in a ragged breath. "There you go," James whispered, holding the boy close. "I've got you, always got you." Around them, chaos erupted. The advisor was arrested, along with 3 others who tried to run. Zix himself was detained when evidence linked him to the plot. The entire dinner descended into accusations, confessions, and the kind of political upheaval that would reshape the empire. But James didn't care about any of that. He just held Kael and let the boy cry into his shoulder, whispering promises that he was safe, that nobody would hurt him again, that James would always, always be there. When he finally looked up, "You saved him again," she said later in her private chambers. The formal dinner had been cancelled. Half the council was under arrest, and James sat in Alara's personal space, drinking real earth coffee that she'd ordered specially, while Kael slept in the next room under quadruple guard. "It's becoming a habit," James said tiredly. "Twice now you've stood between my son and death. Twice you've defied probability, logic, and common sense to keep him breathing." Alara set down her own cup. "Do you know what that means to me? I'm a doctor, If you say what you do one more time, I'm going to scream." She moved closer, and James realized for the first time just how close they were sitting. "You're not just doing your job, you care. About Kael, about our people, about—" She paused. "About me." James's heart did something complicated. "Yeah," he admitted, "I do." "That's dangerous." "Why?" "Because I care back." Alara's hand found his, and James nearly dropped his coffee. Her skin was warm, electric, and his entire nervous system seemed to light up at the contact. "I care about the human doctor who saved my son, who makes Kael laugh, who argues with nobles and wins, who looks at me like I'm just Alara, not the queen." "You are just Alara," James said. "The throne is just a really uncomfortable chair you happen to sit in." She laughed, and it was that crystal bell sound that did things to his chest. "See, that? No one talks to me like that. No one treats me like—" She struggled for words. "Like a person." "You are a person. A person who drinks too much not tea and paces when she's stressed, and has a terrible habit of neglecting her own health while worrying about everyone else. You've been watching me. I'm a doctor, I observe." He paused. "And yeah, I've been watching you." The silence stretched between them, heavy with words unspoken and possibilities unexplored. Alara's hand was still in his, her thumb tracing small circles on his palm that were absolutely not helping his concentration. "This is impossible," she said finally. "You know that, right? A queen and a human, the council would never. The council just tried to murder your son twice. Forgive me if I don't care much about their opinions. My people. Your people need to get over themselves." James set down his coffee with his free hand. "Look, I'm not saying I know what this is. Hell, 6 months ago I was treating space miners for fungal infections and trying to remember to eat lunch. But I know what I feel, and if you're asking if those feelings cross the professional line—" He met her eyes. "Yeah, they do. James, I'm in love with you." The words came out before he could stop them. "I love how you sneak into the medical wing to check on patients personally, how you know every servant's name, how you read to Kael every night even though you're exhausted, how you're trying to hold together an empire that doesn't appreciate you while raising a son alone and dealing with people trying to kill you both." He took a breath. "I love you. The throne, the empire, the political nightmare. I don't care. I love you." Alara stared at him. For a terrifying moment, James thought he'd just destroyed everything. Then she was kissing him. The universe tilted. Her lips were soft, warm, tasting of the not tea she'd been drinking. Her free hands, because 4 arms, James's brain noted distantly, came up to cup his face, gentle and desperate at the same time. And James, who had no idea how to kiss an alien queen, decided to just kiss Alara instead. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Alara rested her forehead against his. "This is still impossible," she whispered. "I specialize in impossible." James smiled. "I saved your son, twice, made a life debt. Got adopted into royalty. I think I can handle impossible. The council will adapt or retire, your choice. My people will follow you because you're their queen and you're brilliant and they trust you." He paused. "And because the alternative is Zix, and nobody wants that." She laughed against his lips. "You make it sound simple." It's not. It's going to be messy and complicated and probably politically disastrous. James pulled back enough to see her face. But I've spent 6 months watching you carry the weight of the universe on your shoulders. If you'll let me, I'd like to help carry it. Not because of the life debt, not because of Kael. Because I want to. Because you deserve someone who chooses you. Not the throne, not the power, just you. Alara's eyes shimmered with those diamond tears. You're sure this will change everything. Your life will never be. My life changed the moment I saved a dying child and discovered he was a prince. This, he gestured between them, this is just the next impossible thing, and I'm pretty good at impossible. I love you, Alara said, and the words felt like a benediction. I love you, and it terrifies me, and I have no idea how we make this work, but we figure it out. James kissed her again, softer this time, together. The council meeting 3 days later was, predictably, a disaster. James stood before the entire assembled nobility of the Alithian Empire, Alara at his side, and announced that the queen was taking a consort, that the consort would be human, that anyone who had a problem with it could formally challenge the decision per ancient law, which meant trial by combat, which nobody seemed eager to pursue against the queen personally. The room erupted, nobles shouted, advisors protested, someone actually fainted. Through it all, Alara stood firm, one hand casually resting on James's shoulder, a gesture of possession, of protection, of partnership. Her voice, when she spoke, could have frozen stars. For 3,000 years, my family has ruled this empire. We have expanded across star systems, built civilizations, and guided our people through war and peace. And in all that time, we have held to one principle above all others: tradition. She paused, letting the word hang. But tradition failed when my son lay dying. Tradition didn't save him. Tradition didn't stop the assassins. Tradition didn't prevent corruption from rotting our government from within. Her eyes swept the council. A human did. A human with courage, skill, and the simple belief that life is worth fighting for. He carries the life debt, someone protested weakly. He carries far more than that. Alara's hand tightened on James's shoulder. He carries my trust, my respect, my love. And if that offends your delicate sensibilities about bloodlines and purity, then I suggest you examine why the idea of change frightens you more than the idea of stagnation. Your Majesty, an older noble, one of the more reasonable ones, stood carefully. We understand your feelings, but the precedent this sets is exactly what this empire needs, Alara said firmly. We have isolated ourselves for too long, believed ourselves above other species, and where has it gotten us? A government riddled with traitors, a people so obsessed with purity that they'd rather see the royal line end than accept help from outside. She took a breath. James Reid saved my son. He saved him again. He has proven his worth a dozen times over, not through bloodline or tradition, but through action, through choice, through love. She looked at him, and James saw the galaxy in her eyes. I choose him. As my consort, as my partner, as the father of my children. Any child we have will carry both human and Alithian blood, and I believe they will be stronger for it. The room went dead silent. You're talking about an heir, someone said faintly. A half-human heir to the throne. I'm talking about the future. Alara's voice softened. A future where we don't fear what's different. Where we embrace change instead of fighting it. Where a human doctor can stand beside an Alithian queen, and neither is diminished by it. She looked at the council. I am your queen, by law, by tradition, by right of blood. I have ruled justly, led wisely, and protected our people for 23 years. I am asking now for your trust. Not your approval, I don't need it, but your trust that I know what our empire needs. That I can see a path forward you cannot yet imagine. The older noble who'd spoken before stood again. And if we refuse, then I will remind you, Alara said softly, dangerously, that a queen rules not by the council's permission, but by the consent of the people. And the people watched a human save their prince, twice. They have already chosen. It wasn't unanimous. It wasn't even close. But slowly, grudgingly, the council bent. James became the first human consort to an alien throne. The first cross-species partnership at that level of power. The first sign that maybe, just maybe, the galaxy was smaller than anyone thought. The wedding was 3 months later, a blend of human and Alithian traditions that confused everyone equally. Kael was the ring bearer, all 4 hands carrying various ceremonial objects. The station commander from Frontier Station was there, crying openly. And when James and Alara exchanged vows in both languages, promising to stand together against whatever the universe threw at them, even the most hardened nobles had to admit it was beautiful. That night in their shared chambers, Alara traced the scars on James's hands, scars from years of emergency medicine, from saving lives in impossible conditions. "Do you regret it?" she asked softly. "Giving up your quiet life for all this?" James thought about it. Thought about the station, the routine, the simplicity. Then he thought about the boy sleeping down the hall who called him Papa James. Thought about the woman in his arms who commanded stars but still needed someone to hold her when she was scared. Thought about the empire they were slowly, carefully reshaping together. "Not even a little bit," he said. "Good." Alara kissed him, slow and deep, "because you're stuck with us now." "Funny," James murmured against her lips. "I was going to say the same thing." Outside their window, 17 suns rose over an empire that was learning slowly to change. And in a medical bay on Frontier Station, a new code crimson alarm was going off, where another doctor was running toward another emergency, ready to save another life. Because that's what doctors do. They save lives. And sometimes, if they're very lucky, they find something worth living for in the process. 5 years later, the Alithian Empire looked very different. The medical wing James had founded now trained doctors from 47 different species. The life-debt law had been expanded to honor cross-species bonds officially. 3 more humans had married into noble families, and the sky hadn't fallen. The council, with much of the old guard retired or removed, actually functioned with something resembling efficiency. And in the royal family's private gardens, where flowers from Earth grew alongside Alithian star blossoms, James sat with his daughter on his lap. Arya was 2 years old, with her mother's luminescent blue skin and silver eyes, but her father's dark hair and that unmistakable human stubborn streak. She had 4 arms like her mother, but she used them to grab James's face and demand, "Story time," in a mix of English and Alithian that made his heart ache with joy. "Tell me how you met Mama," she said, like she did every night. Kael, now 13 and growing into his role as Crown Prince, flopped down beside them. "I know this one. Papa saved me from exploding." "I saved you from dying," James corrected. "The exploding happened before I got there." "Same thing." Kael grinned, then grew serious. "He really did save me, Arya, twice, when nobody else could, not even our best doctors." "Because Papa is the best doctor," Arya said with absolute certainty. "I don't know about that," James started. "You are." Alara emerged from the palace, still in her formal robes from the council session, but her face softened the moment she saw her family. She settled beside James, one hand finding his, another stroking Arya's hair. "The best doctor, the best partner, the best father. The best human to ever crash a royal family," Kael added. "I didn't crash. I was formally adopted via ancient tradition." "You crashed." Alara kissed his cheek, spectacularly, and we're all better for it. James looked at them. His son who wasn't his by blood but absolutely was his by choice. His daughter who represented a future nobody had imagined possible. His wife who commanded star systems but still needed him to remind her to eat lunch. His impossible family. "The council session went well?" he asked. "The education reform passed. Your proposal for universal medical access across all systems passed." And Alara's eyes sparkled. The Terran Alliance officially requested to join the Empire. As equals, not subjects. They specifically cited our family as the reason they believed integration was possible. James stared. Earth wants to join the Alithian Empire. Not just Earth, the entire human alliance, 12 colonies, 300 billion people. She squeezed his hand. You changed more than just our family, James. You changed how an entire empire sees itself, how humans see us, how we see each other. I just saved a kid. You saved my son. Ilara's voice was soft but fierce. You saved him, and in doing so, you saved all of us from our own fear and prejudice. You showed us that strength isn't about purity, it's about courage. That family isn't about blood, it's about love. That the future doesn't have to look like the past. Arya tugged on James's shirt. Papa, am I human or Alithian? It was a question she'd started asking lately. A question that would follow her as she grew. James pulled her close. You're both, sweetheart, and you're neither. You're Arya, you're yourself, and that's more than enough. Will people be mean to me because I'm different? James and Ilara exchanged a look. They discussed this, knew it was coming. Knew their daughter would face challenges they couldn't completely shield her from. Some will, James said honestly. Some people are scared of different, but you know what? You'll have your mama who rules 17 star systems. Your brother who's going to be emperor someday. And me. He tapped her nose. And I've gotten pretty good at handling people who underestimate what's possible. Plus, Kael added, Auntie Sarah is teaching me human combat sports. Anyone's mean to my sister, they're getting judo flipped. Violence isn't the answer, Ilara said automatically. But it is an option, James murmured, and she elbowed him. Arya giggled, then grew thoughtful. Papa, will you tell me the story, the real one, about the night you saved Kael? James looked at his son, no longer the dying child on the deck, but a young man growing into wisdom and compassion. Looked at his daughter who would face a future neither fully human nor fully Alithian, but something new entirely. Looked at his wife, who had chosen love over tradition and changed an empire in the process. Okay, he said, but it's a long story. I've got time, Arya said, settling against his chest. Kael moved closer. I never get tired of hearing it. Ilara wrapped her arms around all of them. Neither do I. So James told the story. About the alarms and the blood and the impossible choice. About a child who trusted him with silver eyes. About a queen who saw past species to the person beneath. About a life debt that became a love story that became a family that became a revolution. He told them about the night everything changed. And when he finished, Arya looked up at him with those silver eyes, so like her mother's, so full of trust and love, and said, You're a hero, Papa. No, James said softly. I'm just a doctor who got really, really lucky. But as he sat there, surrounded by his impossible family in a palace orbiting a binary star, with the future of 2 species growing up in his arms, James had to admit, maybe Arya was right. Maybe he was a hero, or maybe he was just a man who'd learned that the most important thing you could save wasn't a life, it was a future. And theirs was just beginning. The end.